Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode here at Tribal Trades, the daily show coming at you from the great state of Florida. One hell of a drug. And I do want to welcome you to the channel wherever you are tuning in from around the world. Thanks for watching today. We're going to discuss whether possibly the bottom is in for the month of June. But before we do that, smash the like button. And if you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. You'll get these daily updates. Okay, so let's jump straight into it. And of course, what we want to talk about, first of all, is the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this is 20% of the world oil moves through, and it has threatened military closure of Hormuz over 10 times since 2000. Blockage of this route would result in near certain military action by the US, Israel, and others, and obviously would cause a disruption in the supply chain of oil. But I do want to dig in a little bit of this because I do see a lot of posts around about. So currently there are 21 million barrels of oil per day, but 76% of it goes to Asia, 7% to the United States, and 9% to Europe. So if they were to succeed in blocking the Strait of Hormuz, something, by the way, it has never achieved. So this is something, of course, that people are pushing out, that they can just close it if they like, and that they're going to close it. But this is not the case. So it would primarily harm China, one of its few remaining financial partners, and almost nothing to the United States. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. So I feel that this right now, from what I'm reading here, is a lot of FUD, okay, about that. And I'll dig a bit deeper into this, of course, here, that the deepest part of the Strait of Hormuz is in Oman waters. And most ships stay within Oman waters. And until you hear a statement from the government of Oman, do not pay attention to these reports about the strait closing. Even the oil markets don't agree with this. And we'll look at the oil chart in just a moment there. We'll look at one more post from me. Recent tensions, including Iran's supposedly their parliament voted to close the strait, not resulted in a blockade, as the decision awaits approval from Iran's Supreme National Security Council. But experts note that closing the strait would be economically damaging to Iran itself, as it relies on the waterway for its oil exports, and the US Navy's presence makes a sustained closure unlikely. Thus, while the strait has faced disruptions and threats, it has remained open for maritime traffic throughout its entire history. So it has never, ever been closed before in history. And based on what I'm reading at the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to get closed. And if you look at the price of oil here on our oil chart there, we did see another peak up into the tribal trades trend line. This trend line goes back to 2022. Powerful trend line. I'll need to move it down a little bit more. One trend line to rule them all there. And of course, we are not seeing any movement or budging there of that. We could possibly move that even a little bit more there now. In fact, oil has rejected from that trend line. So we have not broken out. We went up, we touched that trend line again, and now we are coming down for the moment. So even the price of oil does not believe some of the reports that are coming out that Iran will or even can close the Strait of Hormuz, because it's never been closed in history. And of course, from what I've been reading, the Oman controls the part where most of that flows through. And of course, it would be shooting itself in the foot because most of its oil exports go to China and very little to the US. And of course, it would hurt its own economy there. So the likelihood of that, it's just the reports of this that is flying around. And of course, what this does is it brings a lot of fear into the market, unnecessary fear, because then people are thinking, well, the price of oil is going to skyrocket. And of course, then there's going to be inflation and no rate cuts, and so on, and it just escalates. And if we were to break through there and have a weekly close and then a weekly open and close above there, then of course that could cause the price of oil to go up and should, as a result, send inflation moving upwards, and that would hurt the markets, of course. But right now, the markets don't believe that, because in the pre-trading on the SPY here, if we look, there is just really, we're actually up. We're up from 594 from where it closed on Friday, and we're actually up to 595 in the pre-market. Now, this is the pre-market. Probably by the time you're watching this, the market may be open already, and will be interesting to see how that plays out when the market's open there. But we're not going to be talking too much about stocks. We're going to jump into Bitcoin and the Bitcoin charts. So let's jump over to this, and I want to talk about Bitcoin. And so, of course, what we see here is, so let's talk about a couple of patterns that I've drawn them out to start with, just to give some ideas of how this could work out. First of all, we see this rounded top pattern here for Bitcoin, and we saw this, and I'll show you how you get the technical target. You take it from the top of the rounded top here, and then you take it down to the bottom of that structure, and then you would take this down, and that actually brings that target down from that rounded top structure to around where it came, which is around 74,000 there. It's basically where we came down to this low over here. So we saw that rounded top play out beautifully. Now we could also have a rounded top situation, which I'm going to share here. We've got another one here, as you can see, a similar rounded top situation that what we have to over here, okay? So now we want to try and find the technical target there of, if this was to play out, where would that take us? And we would find out by having a look down, and that takes us down to about 90,000. Okay, so that if that was to break down through, I would think the 50 EMA, which is around 100,000, if we lose 100, and I would think if we have a daily close and another daily open and close below there and continue to capitulate, that could play out. So 90,000 is the target, but I don't want it may not play out. That's just noticing there. We have a rounded top pattern. We have another rounded top pattern. This one played out to the downside to around 74,000, pretty much exactly. And then, of course, this one, the technical target to the downside would be 90,000. Okay. Now, I also want to share possible another situation here that I believe is possibly already played out, would be the ABC correction there. So we had this big move from 74,000 all the way up to 112,000, and then we have a possible ABC correction here taking place. So we have, there is your A to the downside, there is your B, and there is your C to the downside. Now, again, getting that technical target there for that ABC correction there, that we might have already seen that play out. We may have already seen that play out, because that one, that A, B, C, that goes down to about 98,000. And we've already seen that possibly play out there, about 98,000. So that possibly has already played out, because we already hit that 98,000. You can see the liquidity there that it hit. So it's interesting. So the ABC correction, has that finished playing out? Is now we're going to get that move and that parabolic move to the upside, or are we going to see this rounded top situation play to the downside there at 90,000? So there's more. We do have a inverse head and shoulders pattern here. There's your left shoulder there, a head and a possible right shoulder forming there. If that was to continue form and play out, we have a technical target to the upside of about 144,000 or just over 140,000. Let's just call it 140 to 145,000 there. We also had this in the weekly time frame as well. We have a possible head and shoulders pattern there on the weekly time frame. There it is over there. We have, there's your left shoulder, there's your head, and there's your possible right shoulder playing out there as well. So both end up around between 140 to 145, both on the daily and on the weekly time frame there, that technical target. Now, of course, I did give technical targets for, we had a head and shoulders on the 12-hour and on the daily, and that technical target was down to around 97 and 95. Now, we saw this one potentially play out because this went to a few $100s. The target was 97,900 and went down to 98,240. Remember, these targets are just that. They're not guaranteed to get to those targets. There's no guarantee Bitcoin will get to 145, but I think a lot of people will be happy even if it were to get to 130, let alone even 120, or make a new all-time high there. So that's something to consider, that we do have an inverse head and shoulders on the weekly possibly forming, and also on the daily possibly forming, but it's not there yet. And we don't even have a break to the upside for that as yet. We just have something potentially there forming for Bitcoin. Okay. Now, of course, the furtherness to the bearish side, of course, we have the 9 EMA that crossed below the 20 EMA on the daily. And we actually talked about this with Josh on the Stocks with Josh show yesterday. And I've talked about this many times, how it's extremely bullish when it crosses above to the upside, like you see the dark pink line across the light purple line. And then it is usually quite bearish and it goes the other way, as you can see here, as it drops below. You can see capitulation to the downside there, and you can actually go back and look at the history of Bitcoin on the daily when the 9 drops below the 20 or breaks back above. Now, to reverse this, Bitcoin is going to need to break above. Right now, that target is 103,400. That will curl the 9 EMA, and in the longer it stays above it, it will push back up. And this could just be a lot of fake out business going on. Because like I said, if this ABC correction down to 98,000 is over, then maybe now we begin to see a bullish move for the market. And of course, I'm not prepared to call that yet because we are in a downtrend. So I trade the trend is my friend until the end, until we start a new trend. So I'm not jumping back in the market just yet, and I will update if I make any major moves in the market. Of course, I'm trading these crypto and stocks in and out every day. Of course, if the bull run does finish a lot earlier, that's why I'm more looking at this as the crypto market as being a trader's paradise and investor's hell. Because as you know, I've talked to many people who are quite in loss because they're trying to hold it too long. And you can't hold it too long. You want to get in and get out. And you can see the tribal trades signals here that are given quite beautifully. Get out, get back in again, get out, get back in again. Potentially there's a blue arrow there. We may see a green dot. Quite often a green dot is accompanied with a blue arrow, not always. And so I don't see that quite yet as a signal to jump in the market, but we could be quite close, and I could be quite close of entering a new Bitcoin position or a new altcoin position, depending there. And if you do want to get the tribal trades indicator, one indicator to rule them all, you can still sign up. We are closing the Discord. It comes with the Tribal Trades Discord membership. It's part of the membership. It is a paid signal, and you pay for it by paying for the Tribal Trades Discord, and you get the Tribal Trades indicator and all these wonderful channels in the Discord with the as well as the Tribal Trades indicator. And of course, you can sign up. There is a link below in the description. If you click the more button, that will pop out and you can get signed up there. Okay, so let's jump back because I do have a little bit more to cover there. We do have a CME gap for Bitcoin, and that does bring us up. Well, lo and behold, it brings us up to where the 9 EMA on the daily is, right at about here at 103,700. There's a CME gap. Now, 80% of CME gaps get closed within 4 to 8 days. Okay, so the likelihood of this getting closed is very high. There's an 80% chance that this does get closed and that it get closed within the next 4 to 8 days. But there's a 20% chance it does not get closed right away. But I would expect it to be closed at some point. So keep an eye on that CME gap. You know how many times I share about that CME gap, and literally it feels like a couple of days later it gets closed. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a push up. Already Bitcoin is pushed up to 101,000 to 103. But if we reject there off the 9, that would be quite bearish, because as we looked here for Bitcoin, if we were to come up here off the 9 EMA there, that would be quite bearish. If we were to go up there and reject, that could lead to further downside. And maybe that brings in that 90,000 level with this rounded top here, that's the technical target to the downside, $90,000. And really, that's probably the line in the sand for me. I think if we lose 90,000, we could possibly be the likelihood of going into a bear market does accelerate greatly there. Okay. And remember, I have said every day this month, and I'll say it again, the low for June historically is in the latter part of the month. Usually the last 5 years, particularly, it's been around about the 21st of June, and we just set a new low on June 22. So history doesn't always repeat, but it often rhymes. And that's why when people ask me, are you buying this dip? I'm going, no, because it's just the dip that keeps dipping. And people ask, when will I buy? When I see a trend reversal. I trade the trend. The trend is my friend until the end. And then we start a new trend. And so I trade the trend. The trend is my friend up here. And then the new trend gets started and I get out. I can short up here, or I can wait until there is a trend reversal to get back in. So I'm not done with crypto, even though I shared May 30th, I shared that I was out. I cashed out of crypto. That ended up being a fantastic decision. And of course, altcoins in particular have taken an absolute hammering and punishment there. And that has worked out to be quite well. But that doesn't mean that I'm finished. I think the bull run is over just yet. And I am looking for possible new entries into the market if I see a bullish reversal there. Well, everybody, that's all we have time for today. So until I see you in the next episode, or until I see you in the Discord, happy trading.